All right, it is Monday night, and that is Mentor Monday for SC Code. So hi everyone and welcome. My name is Leah King and I am the Executive Director of Build Carolina, the nonprofit that runs SC Codes. And I'm excited tonight to introduce you to another one of our awesome mentors. This is a time for us to really interact with you. So we are glad to have you guys here. And let me bring in Robert. One moment, let me grab him.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me. Sure, I'll give a brief one and then I can give a longer one if we'd like it. But I'm a designer, a writer, and a coder. That's the shortest form of it. But I love to solve problems. I love to write about the solving of those problems, and where I can build things that help others, I like to do it. I am in Rock Hill, South Carolina. That's right. Trying to.
Sure. Hi guys. I had a problem with my microphone. I'm so sorry.
Nice.
Can you guys hear me? Leave us a comment if you can. And you can hear Robert, so that's good. So I apologize about that, you guys. Quarantine life. I think it's doing something to my brain cells. But we're here now. So Robert is here. He has already given you a quick intro, and you are up in Rock Hill. And I know a few of you are on folks who have been either kind of new to the SC Codes platform, or some people here. I see you, Hector, here. Some folks who have been coming to our library meetups when we were having those. So it's awesome to have y'all here. And after Robert kind of gives a little bit of an overview about his story, we would love to answer any questions that you guys have. So make sure and kind of think about, we've got an awesome professional programmer here live to chat with you. So think about what questions you have and how he might be able to help. So while we kind of get started here, Robert, would you give us some background about kind of your educational path and your career story to date?
Sure thing. So I studied illustration in college. Before that, I drew a little bit and kind of did some Photoshop here and there, but college was illustration, had fantastic teachers, body painting, body drawing, those nude fun classes where it was awkward and someone was in the middle, but man, was it fun drawing muscles, and I had a great teacher. So illustration, color theory, and then eventually it was storytelling. So we made books, and we had a great teacher to tell us, how do you tell one story with words and another story with pictures? So that was school, and from there I started designing ads for the school paper. So that was my first intro to things like Adobe InDesign and Illustrator, really putting text and graphics within a square and learning the pre-press process. So from there I went to a local print shop and helped more with designing things, but mostly with pre-press in general. So how do we print this stuff? What kind of paper do we use? All the fun of kind of the back office stuff right there. A bunch of ink, a bunch of cardstock. It was fun. I built my first web pages while working at a local ad agency, very small, mom and pop. And I kind of stuck my hand up and said, hey, we have a client. They need a basic web page. And I was trying to learn HTML and CS at the time. So I stuck my head up, and pretty simple websites, but it taught me a lot. And I continued doing that for web and print media for a few companies, again, mostly graphic design. And then gradually, over several jobs and states later, I kind of worked my way into more psychology, more understanding systems thinking, and ultimately designing and prototyping much more complex systems, and the ones that run in the browser for the most part. And browsers are on phones, so it runs on phones too. So yeah, that's the background leading up to today.
Leading up to today, yes. And it sounds like for you, a lot of your story is sort of based on just kind of what you were doing at work and what you were learning as you went, which is a common theme that we hear from folks who've kind of found themselves in web development, software development. So it's great to hear that that was kind of your experience too. So can you tell us a little bit about kind of what do you work on day to day right now, and what do you most enjoy doing about programming?
Sure. Yeah, ultimately programming is designing, but with code. So you're still designers, even if you're developers, in my opinion. So today I do a few things in general. So the main day job is at a bank. I help test web applications for accessibility compliance. So are they able to, can someone with a screen reader navigate? Can someone with an assistive technology other than a screen reader understand and cohere what's going on? In addition to that, I help small businesses rapidly prototype their ideas by any means necessary, whether it's let's put some boxes on a page and get a little screen and hand it to a customer and see what they think, or if it's using like really cool no-code tools like I don't know, Webflow, Thunkable, Retool, all sorts of new cool stuff that you definitely have to understand programming to use, but you don't write Ruby, Java, HTML, or CSS. You kind of put blocks together and they've made it visual. And the last big thing is that I build more operational tools specifically for one company that I hope saves them time, money, and ultimately improves the customer's experience through the little things that I build. So those are the 3-day jobs. And then beyond that, I'm learning. I'm always watching videos, trying to stay in the Slack channel, helping others. Ultimately, the best way I learn is by teaching.
Yeah, well, that was what I was going to ask about next. Is because you've kind of taken pieces and learned about different things that along the way and put that together. How do you approach learning? Where do you go? How do you think about that, and how do you kind of find what it is that you need to know to continue your career the way you want to?
Sure. It can be overwhelming at all times, especially development in general. So a good example is, so my wife and I have Blue Apron, and we love the recipes, we love the food. Blue Apron has a fantastic mobile app, but we get 3 recipes a week, and we might love a few of those each week. So I would collect the little recipe cards that Blue Apron gives me, but I really had no way other than sifting through the cards to meal plan for the next week. Like we didn't have our favorites stored somewhere. So I used that as an excuse, having upped my JavaScript chops a little bit and kind of wanting to get more full stack. Like databases terrify me, servers terrify me, all that stuff terrifies me. But I'm like, you know what? I need to do it, and might as well use the excuse of happy wife, happy life to get me further. So I did exactly that. I used whatever Blue Apron resources I could find. I went to MongoDB, has a university online that's free courses every so often, and just kind of piecemealed my way through online tutorials. It's not the best way to do it, but I got something up and running. And now every week, my wife kind of pushes some buttons, makes a menu, goes to a different screen, and it's an app that I built, and I'm proud of it because I helped her out, and she ultimately helps me out by cooking for me sometimes. So I learned by sheer will of, I want this to be easier, I will make it easier for us.
Yeah, I love that. I think every week we've had someone talk about, programming as a means to some kind of solving of a problem that is annoying in some way for us for daily life. So I love that story. It's a great example. Well, as you know, because you've been really active in our Slack channels, we've got a lot of folks who are part of the SC Codes community who are kind of exploring programming, either for the first time ever or kind of coming back to it after maybe, doing a career in something else for a while. So I'd love to kind of get your insight and your advice for some of those newer folks who are thinking about getting into programming from your perspective. But I think the most common question that I get is like, where do I start? And once I complete a thing, an online tutorial, one of our modules on SC codes, what is it that I do next?
Sure.
Which is a difficult question to answer, right? Because the types of pathways are pretty endless. So I'd love to kind of have you talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So advice for newbies or newcomers. Again, I'm a web developer by heart, but ultimately any programmer. I think the easiest way into it is to just build websites per kind of the Chris Coyier CSS tricks ethos. And while I don't love the word just, because it has, in a sense, gotten harder and more complicated, seemingly, it's still easy to build websites, but based on all the articles you'll read, it feels really hard. But it's still just HTML at its core. Write a document like you would a Word document, and you're off to the races. So just build websites, but you honestly won't know if it's the right path until you struggle the first several times, because any developer's day will tell you, I couldn't figure this out. I looked on Stack Overflow. It wasn't there. I had to go ask some coworkers. It wasn't there. Like, oh, I guess I have to critically think now about what I'm doing. So definitely complete whatever you can on SC codes. It's a growing library. It's still small. There's a much larger one if you get bored with that on Free Code Camp. And Free Code Camp has tons of them. It connects to your GitHub profile. And there are projects there too. So take the assessments, learn the basics on sccodes.org, and then start on Free Code Camp, do some exercises, try some projects out, and then another website that's fun, again, projects. So SC Codes, Free Code Camp, and then a newer one is called frontendmentor.io. Again, specifically front end if you're making websites, but you can go there, it's free. You can download little starter kits that have images and assets for you, and try the beginner and the junior exercises. You're recreating landing pages, but it's way better and more effective at practicing than, okay, here's what an H1 does and here's what a P does. Hopefully you've known that and you're doing it. So projects. Do a few, and after you've done a few, if the work hasn't been rewarding in any way, then simply you're not on the right path, because that's what a developer does, is build websites or build applications. So you're not there. I have many more. We can certainly take other questions, but I'm happy to come back to kind of beyond that. If it is the right path, no matter what, I have much more advice too. So
yeah.
Keep going, or new questions.
Well, and just as a reminder for those of you who are here with us, that we truly are just here to chat and really to answer your questions. So if you all have questions for Robert about learning to code, about coding in South Carolina, about his path, or questions about the SC Codes platform, feel free to just throw those into the comments. And Robert, I was going to ask you to, expound a little bit upon networking and kind of the importance of connecting with others who are both learning, but also others who are in the field. How has that been part of your journey, and what's kind of your advice for how to find others?
Absolutely. So I didn't really do any networking when I was in Arizona. I moved from Arizona to North Carolina in 2013. And right when I got here, I discovered meetup.com, and I discovered a user experience meetup in Charlotte, which has since moved several places within Charlotte. But went there for the first time, was super nervous, but I guess what eventually became my goal was make one new connection. Don't try to talk to everybody. Just maybe find one person. If you find them and you're not quite jiving, talk to somebody else. It's okay to kind of get up and grab a snack and leave. But try to find one new connection, get a business card, get a phone number. I promise that person will be a friend for life. Beyond meetups, find them. They're everywhere. A lot of them are virtual now, which is wonderful.
Right.
I organized a few a little while ago. I've since stepped down from a few of them, but great experience just talking to people. And don't feel shy. Everyone has a bit of imposter syndrome, but everyone also just wants to help. So take advantage of others wanting to help. And the biggest thing you can do is regarding LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, definitely connect with people you already know, coworkers, friends, whoever you can, and either through them or through randomness, find companies that you admire, or take the apps that you like most on your phone, find the companies that make those apps, find their page on LinkedIn, look at the people who work there, and if anything, target the junior developers, or honestly, even the senior developers. Don't go CEO level because they're busy and you don't have much to talk to them about yet. But the lower ones, in a sense, are happy to talk to you. They want to tell you what it's like to work there. They want to help you get a job if you're looking for it. Like, they're there to do great work and be successful by recommending the next awesome developer that they add to their team. So leverage the goodness in everyone's heart to help someone out like yourself who is a newcomer to the area.
Yeah, that's great advice. And in Rock Hill, we do have a new partnership starting up. Of course, quarantine has slowed it down just a little bit, but we are partnered up with the library, just like we are in several other locations, where we will be bringing together our mentors with the people who are interested in learning. And for those of you who are in communities where we already have those partnerships, I know I think a couple of you have mentioned being in Charleston, Columbia. We've had a couple of not only meetups, which are certainly helpful and kind of a little bit looser as far as topic, but really intended to be there for that networking connection, get whatever questions you may have answered. We're hosting some cohort style classes as well. And so that's really a big part of what SE Codes is all about, and kind of one of the main reasons why we do what we do is to say, hey, you know what, there's a lot of this work happening in South Carolina and real people who are doing this here, and we want to make sure that, you know, we've made these connections and these pathways for people to kind of get to know each other and see what that looks like in real life. So we know that we've chatted with Robert a good bit in Slack, and we love doing these live Q&A sessions for you guys here on YouTube. And that's really great because, of course, we can connect in those ways virtually. And when we can, we will, of course, also get back to getting together in person. So we definitely look forward to doing that in Rock Hill.
Every 3 chairs apart in the beginning. Let's keep the social distancing going.
Yeah, that's good. So, and just a quick reminder that we are here for questions. I haven't seen many come through yet. I know some of you are still in your learning journey. So if you want to just share a little bit about kind of where you are, what it is you're learning about, we love to just hear from you. And of course, if you have any questions for Robert, definitely post those as well. Robert, can you give us a little bit more information about kind of what your working life looks like right now? I assume you're remote.
I work from home
at this time. So what does that look like for you?
Not much really changes. My current team is all in St. Louis. So, I mean, no matter what, we don't really talk face to face. We call every now and then. And before that, my team was on the same floor as me, but most of them sadly would wear headphones most of the day. So pro tip, if you're in an office with somebody else and you have headphones on, you are probably missing out on a lot of really great connections because it's intimidating to want to make someone remove a headphone. So I have a standing desk and I don't listen to headphones so that I'm encouraged to get up, walk around, talk to people, and so that others, you know, if they strike my eye and we talk and we visually say hello to each other, there's even more of a wonderful happenstance of, oh, hey, what you working on? How's it going? So remote, not too bad, works fine. Yeah, I mean, that's remote work. I can always talk about more day-to-day stuff too, but that's definitely remote work.
Yeah, I would love for you, well, and remote work is really a bigger reality for a lot of us right now than normally would be. I'm sure you can hear my dog and my 3-year-old in the background. And
that's okay.
Well, I mean, it's kind of part of it, and it's also kind of a nice part of it, right? Like we can still accomplish so much even from home, which is awesome. I think that I don't have the statistics in front of me right now, but as Kim and I, Kim Crust, who is our other partner with SC Codes, have been sort of traveling the state, so much of what we hear about is remote work and the rise in opportunities for folks who have programming skills to be able to work remotely and still live in South Carolina. That's pretty appealing to a lot of people. So it's great just to kind of hear, a little bit more about what that looks like for you day to day. But a little bit from the technical side too. It would be cool to hear what it is that you're working on at work and kind of go from there. And we do have a couple questions coming in, so I'll check those while you're going over that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I look forward to those. So I, unlike probably the other mentors that we've talked so far, I'm not professionally employed as a traditional developer. Right now, I'm an accessibility specialist, so I definitely employ my front-end development skills to help teams identify accessibility defects. But I'm definitely a designer first. So I hunt for problems to solve, and I seek to quickly understand what causes the problems so I can best recommend how to solve them. And that's usually done through rapid prototyping and interviewing users or customers. So it's definitely what I did at my most recent job, not this one, was I used a tool called Axure, not Azure, but AXURE, which let me put boxes on a page and use a bunch of quasi JavaScript to create like a prototype that looked and felt like the real thing, so that I could have people come over to my desk, or I could share a Zoom or WebEx link with some real customer we designed for employees. So it was another employee and say, hey, can you try to complete this task? Here's a link to the app. And I would fool them because I made it look like the real app, but it wasn't. And they would give me honest feedback about that. So day-to-day today is definitely testing web apps for accessibility using all sorts of assistive technologies. I'm consulting developers throughout each day. So different Scrum teams in the agile mindset. They've got stories that have been written. They're trying to write code. Every 2 weeks, they have to write working software. And so I'm helping them hopefully get their stories through the door, ready to be demoed, and minimize the defects that are accessibility-wise.
That's awesome. It's really important work. So thanks for sharing a little bit more about that. So we do have a question from Eric, and I see a bunch of these coming in, so you guys keep the conversation going with each other and with us. That's great. Eric asked, as a networking professional, I do have some of the fundamentals of programming. I have knowledge of variables, functions, etc. What is the best way to get practice? Are there any logical solutions? And I know you touched a little bit on that earlier, but Hector also popped back in just to ask if you would kind of remind us about some of those other practice sites too, which we will definitely make sure that we add those to the comments after this is over as well. But if you can just do a quick reminder about those.
So how to practice your technical skills was the question, Eric?
Yeah, his wording was, what is the best way to get practice?
Gotcha. So number one, I happen to be pasting, I call them Slack snacks of the day. So if you're not already in SC Codes Slack, join
we will put that link here as well.
Cool.
Yes.
In the hashtag front end basics room, once each morning, I put in a Slack snack of the day. It's one line of JavaScript, and I ask you to describe it and say what it returns. And you can get up to 3 stars. It's my way of having Angry Birds, but for code. So I feel like some people enjoy that, but that's just a fun little thing. Plenty of websites that are free that you can sign up for that will help you practice. So our library on SC Codes is a great starter. Freecodecamp.org. If you sign up for that through your GitHub account, and make sure you have a GitHub account before you go there, because when you connect the two, GitHub has a whole bunch of like green squares that shows your progress throughout the day. And if you connect those two, then every single exercise you complete and project you complete it will automatically like track your progress. So if you're looking to impress hiring managers or other people, it gives you green dots for free the more you practice. So free code camp. Man, there are plenty of other stuff. There's a website called Coding Game, either .io or .com. Coding Game, and it's games, and you can choose any programming language you want, and you multiply have to like, the acceptance criteria is make the missile shoot the vehicle or do this and do that. So a good way to take you out of run like the dryness of a regular day and more like, I want to build video games. Okay, use Java, use Ruby, use Python, use JavaScript, whatever you want, build some fun games. And then I think the last one that I mentioned earlier, it's called frontendmentor.io. And it's packed with, at this point, about 20 challenges, and they're each roughly a landing page that's been designed, and your job is more or less to code the HTML and CSS and JavaScript that is a direct recreation of the design. So there's landing pages all the way up to, there's a rock, paper, scissors game that you have to build from scratch. There's one that just lists all of the countries, and you have to basically create a REST API or use a REST API to put it all in the app. So you're building a single page application. Plenty of good stuff there. Yeah. I'm happy to offer all sorts of other ones that I use every day.
Yeah. And a couple of you are just thanking Robert for sharing his story. And I did want to just mention that Robert and the dozens of other mentors for SC Codes that we have across the state are active on our Slack channel. So after this conversation is over, you don't have to wait till next week. If you want to connect with Robert, want to connect with any of our other mentors, or if you have questions about, hey, I'd really like to practice this particular skill or build something, in particular, feel free to go there anytime and ask those questions. There's even an Ask a Mentor channel if you don't really know where to go. That you can, just hop in there and anyone who is active will be able to help answer those questions. So, but Hector and Dan both were thanking you for just sharing your story. And Dan said he's loving hearing about all the different journeys and all the challenges that he has to look forward to, which is awesome.
Yes, always be learning. That's generally the motto of any good developer.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Enjoy the challenges because you're going to have a lot.
I thought it was always be coding. No.
Closing? Yeah. I like always be learning because it means you'll be able. So that's fine.
That's great. And you guys feel free to pop over with any other questions you have. Robert, I was interested to hear a little bit more about how you kind of landed in accessibility.
Sure.
I think it's, a hugely important, probably underrated part of the design and development process. And, I think it's a really cool avenue to kind of explore for folks who are interested. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you kind of got into that.
Sure. Wasn't anything in particular. I was at one bank on a contract, and I helped make a fairly complicated website. And there was a team at the bank who, unbeknownst to me and my team, reviewed it for accessibility defects. And we would have calls with them and find out, okay, it doesn't pass this, it doesn't pass that. So that's where I was first truly introduced to it. And then my next job, I volunteered to be part of a very small team within my team that was in charge of making little checklists for the rest of the team and other developers, like a designer checklist, a developer checklist. And those things had on it key accessibility tenets like don't use color alone to signify something. So odds are, if you've been on a website and you filled out something correctly on a form, the border might be green. And if you push submit and there was an error, the border might be red. But for a large population, mostly of men who are red-green colorblind, that border may not have looked like it changed at all. So they are confused as to, I'm pushing the button, but nothing has changed. Instead, you can certainly use the color, but add a check mark, add an X mark, add something that is a shape or a pattern to help people not just use color alone. So at the bank, I did a lot of that. I helped a lot of developers. And then this most recent job I got because of a lot of that experience. And I've learned so much more in it, just all the different screen readers you can use. I've read a ton more articles on accessibility. And I very recently was lucky enough in one of our lunch and learns to do accessibility in video game design. So when I play games, and wonderfully, more companies are considering that in their games. So not only in like game menus, you can turn on a colorblind mode. You can, like in some games, you have to tap really fast in order to beat an enemy. And games let you turn that into just hold the button, because a lot of gamers might have muscular disabilities and they can't press a button that fast. So little things like that, all the way through to like Xbox came out with a dedicated controller called the adaptive controller. I want to say maybe a year ago now. And you can plug in any assistive technology to it and map it to the controls that are on a regular controller. So just a huge revolution for disabled gamers everywhere. So yeah, it's a fun topic that the more you learn about it, the more marketable you will be to any company, because most of them are global these days, and many of them have to adhere to what's called Section 508 of there's Section 508, and then there's the Americans with Disabilities Act. So as more companies seek to align to it in order to avoid lawsuits, they want their designers and developers to just instinctively catch those things. So yeah, it's a good skill to have.
That's awesome. I think that a lot of what you have experienced is really helpful in making you a great mentor, and you're kind of a lifelong learner too. And I'd love for you to talk about, why are you an SC Codes mentor, and what is it about mentoring others that kind of fuels you?
Sure. So I'll admit it's selfish in the beginning. My best way to learn something is to prove that I can teach it to someone else. So it has the side effect of others learning, which is good. But yes, ultimately it's this thing seems interesting. Can I go and read up on it? Did I understand it? What's the best way to prove that I understood it? Well, it's to practice on my own. And then can I recreate that thing that I just practiced? Okay. Now, could I help someone else understand the thing that I just practiced? And maybe by my teaching them, they don't have to go and read the very likely dry, drab documentation that I had to sift through in order to learn it that way. So generally speaking, that's my approach to anything is, can I push myself to learn it? And now that I feel like I've learned it, can I teach someone else it to prove that I have indeed learned it? And maybe they were struggling or they were afraid to learn it because of their entry point to it. And hopefully I just gave them the encouragement that they needed to learn it better. And specifically in SC Codes, I'm most closest to Charlotte. And Charlotte has a ton of meetups. And since I moved from just off of I-74 down to Rock Hill, there are not nearly as many meetups down here. And there should be, because we have a very growing community all across South Carolina, but specifically in Rock Hill. So anything that I can do to not make people commute as far as I've had to and create a community much closer, then I can get home for my smoothie much earlier. So again, it's all selfish, but it grows the community anyways.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And you're right. There are a lot of folks who are doing this kind of work in the Rock Hill area and in so many of the communities in South Carolina that don't have a super active meetup scene. So I love that. And would love for you to kind of touch on, as we wait and see if anybody else has questions, go ahead and ask those now. We're kind of starting to wind down a little bit, so I want to make sure we answer anything that you may be wondering here from Robert. In the meantime, though, Robert, one thing that I think is cool to hear about from programmers is, what are some of the skills and traits that you think are really important for people to have if they're looking at entering this field?
Sure. Resilience, I hope is the right word. And I say that because there have been many times where I've spent hours trying to figure out what is wrong with my code, only to learn after so many rabbit holes I've gone down that either I didn't include the right file at the right time, or I forgot to put a little semicolon at just the right spot, or I think 2 days ago, I was trying to figure out why an API call wasn't working one way versus the other. And it turns out I had written .com instead of .app. And if I had just read the email I got 2 weeks ago from that service, I would have been fine. So resilience in it might not work. Try to work small first. So just small ingredients, one line at a time. Type it, auto-save it, move over to your browser or try to compile it. And if it fails, at least you know it failed on that one little line. If you try to build your entire application out and then run it and you get an error, odds are you're going to do a cat and mouse trick to figure out where it happened. So keep everything small and bite-sized, test early, test often. That's probably the best way to avoid some of that stuff. But traits for a programmer, critical thinking, knowing which wheels you should not reinvent. Sadly, like technical interviews will ask you to rewrite sorting algorithms, but in your day job, you're probably not going to have to rewrite any sorting algorithms. You can just use array.sort and you're fine. So yes, gain the knowledge, but also know what are the vanilla tools that are available to me. Can I get really good at those? Do I have to depend on other things? Or you know what? I can get this up and running if I just include this framework. It'll save me a lot of time, and it's not introducing any technical debt because it's a tried and true framework, and we use it elsewhere in the company. So know when not to invent the wheel, have a lot of resilience, use your critical thinking abilities as best you can, and I guess just don't be afraid to either try new things, or even if you read in an article, avoid this part of the language, question that. Because odds are the person who said that doesn't fully understand that part of the language, whereas you can, and it might really help you out.
That's great advice. And for anyone who may have joined us a little bit late, will you quickly remind us, so you do not have a computer science degree, correct?
Yep, that is very correct. I have a visual communications degree in fine art.
Right, and then just a lot of self-taught and experiential learning after that, right?
That's correct. Even self-taught. I read the words of others and watched others who are very, very skilled in this.
Right.
And I struggled my way through books and tutorials and that sort of thing. So
right.
Like I believe most other people are doing these days.
Yes, I think you're right. I think anyone who's coming from a more traditional educational background, or kind of this understanding that you go through school, you graduate, you go to some kind of college or, community college, technical school, or even a certification program. And you have to have kind of that check mark beside your name to feel like you should, then be legitimate in this field. And I think programming is just quite different, and it's so much newer than so many other industries and fields. And so I tend to encourage our students that they don't necessarily have to go and get a 4-year degree or even a 2-year degree, although that is a great path for some. And we are really advocates for all kinds of education. But for those who, for whatever reason, can't go back and get a degree, that this is still something that you can really pursue.
Sure.
And you're a great example of that.
And to briefly expand upon that, the most helpful way to learn anything new is as real time of feedback as you can get. So in school, hopefully it is the students that you're working with, the professor quizzes, tests, that sort of thing, that help you understand, what did I get wrong and what will I know not to do it again? In boot camps, it's usually during the class or with a mentor afterwards. You sadly don't really get that from things like a Udemy tutorial or really any online course, as you have to be your own feedback mechanism. So that's where it can help to have a mentor, a tutor, someone like truly a personal fitness trainer, but for coding, to tell you in real time, like pair programming is the best you can do. So find someone and think of an app you both want to build, and switch off being the person who says, okay, here's what we should do, and being the person who's actually writing it. And the both of you will tell each other, oh, no, you forgot, you misspelled function. Oh, no, you need an if else there. And that is the best way to just harbor into your head, here are good ways to code. I'm doing this right. I'm doing this wrong. Real-time feedback is the best way to learn, however you get it.
That's great. Thank you so much, Robert. For those of you who are on, please leave us feedback and let us know what questions you have, what questions, or really kind of what topics you want to see SE Codes tackle. We do have some ideas about Mentor Mondays in the future. We might go over some of our courses and kind of show you guys what it looks like. Robert had some great ideas about things that we could kind of showcase, almost kind of like live coding demos, cool stuff like that. So we are very open to coming here and providing you guys with something that you really want. We do have a question about whether there is, or would it be possible to set up some kind of practice project on GitHub that students could work with?
Yeah. Certainly a possibility. I can give a few now if you just want, like, can you rebuild, again, with front-end development, can you rebuild iOS's calculator app? It's just a calculator, but a fun project. On Google, if you type in any word, like if you type in program on Google, it will likely pop up like a dictionary widget. Can you rebuild that? So anybody watching, that rock, paper, scissors is a good one. I know that React, which is a popular JavaScript framework, their big tutorial, you recreate tic-tac-toe. So again, always a fun project out there, but yes, we can certainly do fun little GitHub stuff. Back to you.
I think that we're on like a few second delay, but I don't see any other questions that have come through. If you guys have asked something else and we don't see it, we will make sure to add comments after this and make sure we address that. Don't forget to join us on Slack. Again, that's kind of a better real-time way to connect with us. And we're just glad that y'all are here. Robert, we're super glad that we got to spend some time with you tonight. I hope your quarantine is going well, and hopefully we'll have you back here soon.
Yeah. Any chance I have 1 or 2 minutes for last minute?
Yeah, please. Let's have you kind of fill in anything we didn't cover.
Cool. Okay. So earlier tonight I said just build websites. You'll only know that if that development is your right path if you struggle and build. So whether it is or isn't, recommended book it's called What Color is Your Parachute? What color is your parachute? And I recommend it because it has a bunch of checklists that will help you self-reflect to know what jobs to look for, because you'll know what skills you're good at. So with that, you can search job boards and postings for things you may not have otherwise sought out. Many of the people here and on Slack and other communities, they say, "Ooh, I'm looking for a job in 6 months," or "I'm looking for a job in a year." Start applying today, because you might get a phone call, your resume might hit somebody and you didn't think it would, but also you're gonna get a lot of no's for reasons that you will not know of and will not make sense to anybody. But get those no's now so you can get the yeses 6 months from now. Update your resume once a month. Doesn't matter what it is, but I'm sure you'll think of something each month to add to it or remove from it. And when you're updating it, focus on your impact. So don't just say what you did, but say why it helped the company. Say why it helped somebody else. And kind of the biggest thing is try to write something each day. I took inspiration from a guy named Seth Godin, huge marketer, 2 Octobers ago now, to write a 1-minute article every day. And I have not skipped my streak. I have still been doing it for about 500 to 600 days, different platforms, but I hold myself to a minute once every morning or at night. You can write code, you can write an article, you can write in a diary, but just hold yourself to writing, and even better, try to publish it. Because if you don't write it and no one sees it, we won't think you wrote anything. But the more you write, the better you'll do, whether it's code or just words. So go do awesome things, share it with us. I'm glad to be here with you guys. Hopefully that was a good way to end it.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. We did have one final question come through about learning Swift. Do you have any experience learning
I only have
Swift?
experience continually giving up learning Swift. So I'm not the right person to ask about that, but it is certainly a compelling language for anyone who wants to design an iOS app.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I go the different route of, like, I mentioned a thing called Thunkable earlier, which is a cool no-code tool that you can drop blocks on a page and almost immediately publish an app to two different services. So because I don't know Swift, I prefer the visual programming side of it, but absolutely Swift is not going away. It's only getting stronger as more people publish iOS apps. And I mean, it has components of many different languages in it, just like JavaScript. So could be a great way to go. I'm probably not the mentor to ask for much about Swift, though. Sorry.
Might be a good question to throw into Slack, because we probably do have some mentors who've built in Swift, written in Swift. Thank you again, Robert, and thanks to all of you who've been here with us tonight. I hope you all have a great week, and we will be back next week. Thanks,
Cheers.
y'all.
Thank you.